Hello, friends, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is a beautiful Friday, May 27th, 2022. I'm Jer Stays, coming to you from east of Woodward.
And from west of Woodward, this is Devin O'Reilly.
First, what are you drinking?
Well, Jer, it is summer officially. I mean, this weekend will ring in the official start of summer. I've got a ranch water. I don't know if our friends in Michigan are as familiar with it. I picked this up from some friends who live in the South. In Texas, it's very simple. It's basically like the Texas seltzer. It's very simple. It's just a shot of tequila, some Topo Chico, and fresh squeezed lime juice. And that's it.
All right.
Very refreshing, extremely refreshing. Sip it over ice. It's just great in the summer. So
you learn something new every day.
That's why we do this show, Jared, to learn something new. So what do you got?
I figured that I needed to go with a true summer cocktail, a summer favorite, if you will. And what I'm going with is the raspberry gin fizz.
Wow, that sounds fun, and it sounds summery, and you might have just inspired me to make it. So how might I go about creating this cocktail?
All right, so you really want to do the fresh raspberries, and you kind of like muddle them at the bottom, like you do a cocktail shaker, whatever you want to do. Then you do a little lime juice, and then you do your gin. And then if you want to, if you're adventurous, and I'm curious how people feel about this, you do the egg white.
Oh.
How do you feel about egg whites in your drinks?
I leave that to the professionals usually. I don't try and do egg white drinks on my own, but if you know how to do it.
What it does is it adds a lot of body. I don't think it's necessary. Like I do not look askance if you don't do it, but I think you go for it. You top it with ice, and then you shake, you strain it. You leave about like an ounce and a half at the top, and then you top with soda water.
Now, Jared, because I'm really interested in this aspect, as most listeners might know, but what kind of a glass will you drink this in?
I'm going to guess like a coupe.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I mean, it's a little bit of a fancier glass, although let's be honest, if a mason jar is around, that's what I'm using.
You could do this in a Collins glass, though, too. I feel like that might be a nice piece of glassware.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think both of those work, but I don't really, especially for the home drinking, I do not look askew at anyone's glass choices. I'm here for the cocktail.
Jer, I am, as they would say, or as you would say, persnickety about my glassware. The drink has to fit the glassware, and I will dig through my kitchen or go downstairs to find the glass if I need to, because it has to be right.
dailydetroit@gmail.com. Are you persnickety about your glassware? We know Engineer Randy is.
Right.
We know he's listening to this cringing at my decisions.
Me and Randy are on the same side on this one. I know that at least.
All right, let's get into the stories around town. And we have to start with the biggest kind of local restaurant establishment news that unfortunately happened early this morning. The iconic Traffic Jam and Snug restaurant burned. Firefighters are calling it a total loss on the interior. This place, if you don't know, and I don't know how you don't know, but if you don't know, it's been around since 1965, and is actually, because it's the good news is they're saying they're going to reopen. So that's a good sign already. But the first legal brew pub in Michigan, they got that in 1992 after a decade-long legal fight. So if you have been to a brew pub anywhere in Michigan, you have Traffic Jam and Snug to thank for it.
Jared, this is, God, I mean, tremendous loss. And I know, like you said, they'll rebuild and, perhaps better. But I think it's important. I'm going to share mine, and I want you to share yours, just in terms of kind of what it means to you. So for me, Traffic Jam was my kind of gateway to Detroit and the food scene and kind of the hipster stuff that was going on in around 2010, 11. My parents had gone to Wayne State for a while. And my dad went to Traffic Jam in the late 60s and early 70s. And so they knew it as like a cool spot. And they took me and my brothers there as we were like adolescents and teenagers, and really exposed us to, what Detroit was, what Midtown Detroit was, beyond just Greektown. And so for me, it was truly the gateway that got me interested in, the food scene in Detroit, what was going on development-wise, the cool new stuff, the drinks, the food, all that. So Traffic Jam just has an absolute special place in my heart because of what it meant and what it kind of became to represent for me going forward. It kind of was the catalyst for all the stuff that would come from the Man About Town. So it's very, very important to me. I know you, Jerry, also have some fond memories of it.
My grandmother was a big patron of the arts and the DIA, Wayne State, the Hillberry Theater specifically. Before we'd go to shows, we would go to Traffic Jam. And it has so many memories of that, whether it's her, whether it's I've been on dates, whether it's with friends. Over many years, it has been a constant in kind of like the Midtown world there at Cass and Canfield. Well, kind of close, but basically Cass and Canfield, just a little bit of west of that. And it hurts because there is so much history to this thing, and it's had such a unique feel and really, stands for something. My favorite dish that I can remember from there is the Help Me Elvis, I'm in a Pickle, because
yes,
I'll never turn down a good fried pickle, sir.
Yes, they did a fantastic job with the fried pickles, and they did their own ice cream, their own cheese, their own beer. It was truly like just almost like the original kind of farm to table. They just did it all in house. Now, Jerry, I think it's important to kind of put some context in the story that for as much of an icon as they were, I think what we had seen in the past handful of years, let's say, is they were kind of getting lost a little bit in the shuffle. With the explosion of the culinary scene in Detroit, they just weren't hanging in there with like the best of the best. And so I do feel like in the last handful of years, they had kind of become more so of an afterthought.
Unfortunately, I mean, I can see where you're coming from. I think they could use this as an opportunity, though, to like reintroduce themselves to an area that has a lot more restaurants and things to it. Because I mean, for years, it was just like Mario's and Motor City across the street, Motor City Brew Works.
Yeah, go get a burger at Bronx, I guess.
Bronx, right? Like for years, that was it. And so I think there could be some silver linings in this, especially considering that already we're hearing through the media reports that, they want to rebuild. And I mean, I want to insert this personal bit too. And this is something that I learned reading these stories, is that owner Scott Lowell is actually been on the Poland-Ukraine border doing humanitarian work, and found out about this through a text message. And apparently, as we're recording this, trying to find a way back to Detroit to deal with this. So you have something that's been an establishment so long, and then kind of the base of something, because, Scott Lowell's done a ton of buildings and things, in the Midtown area. It's a catalyst to so much. And I want to be hopeful, and I want to say that it'll rebuild, and I want to say that this could be an opportunity to reintroduce it into a market that, long live Traffic Jam and Snug, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure, Jared. I am all about the silver lining.
It's not about the destination. It's all about the journey. Ain't nothing changed but the weather.
So let's stay on the restaurant thing before we get into some development here. Great Lakes Coffee on Woodward in Midtown will not reopen. We foreshadowed this big time, Devin. Like this is something that we kind of called that it was going to happen. It closed after a COVID outbreak in January. It became the focus for a strike and unionization efforts. Workers wanted $15 an hour, other benefits, better working conditions. Even though that the place is now closed, the workers, supported by Unite Here, are still planning to file an unfair labor practice complaint. The company continues on with 4 Detroit area locations, plus 1 in Florida, and of course their roasting and direct coffee business. This is going to be something that I think will send a message, one way or another, through the entire restaurant and coffee community in this town.
Jared, I got a lot of feelings about this because much like Traffic Jam, there was a period in my life, probably between 13 and 15, where of all the places, and at that point I had been to over 200, approaching 300 places in Detroit. If you asked me what my favorite place was, I would tell you Great Lakes Coffee, because of the vibe, because of the people, because of the staff, because of the ability to get a coffee at 9 a.m. and get a cocktail at 2 p.m. and get a beer coffee at noon. So it was one of my favorite places. So this is also kind of an RIP. It's really sad to see it go, and it's terrible the way it went. And it's just I'm very conflicted, Jared, because what I ask myself, what I come back to, nobody's completely right and nobody's completely wrong as far as I'm concerned in this situation. But at the end of the day, what was accomplished? Now a prime corner of Midtown is vacant. There is no more Great Lakes. Those people don't have jobs anymore. So they're not going to get the benefits, the health care, the protections. You hope, I hope that they found gainful employment elsewhere, but we don't know. It sounds like if they're still protesting, maybe they haven't. And that's not really going to go anywhere at this point. So my question, Jerry, is what was accomplished?
I mean, clearly attention.
Sure.
Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib was part of this. The unions kind of, especially Unite Here, use this as a show cause because there is a big push to unionize coffee shops, fast food restaurants, and other places around the country. And this was the ground zero of it. It's not really a chain, but it's not really completely, totally small and independent. It's in a weird little space with that. I agree with you that at the end of the day, this is not nobody's got the jobs now. And I mean, they can file their complaints and they might make some headway, but I don't know, outside of Twitter, I don't know if this really made an impact or if it sent the messages that work with this, because there's already a lot of hesitancy, and especially as we are clearly, to me, heading into a recession, about doing investments in things right now. And although I personally think that you mentioned the staff, I think that staff definitely need to be fairly compensated. I don't know where we go from here, because at the end of the day, this didn't work.
Right.
Or some people might think it did. Some people, I'm sure, have the opinion that they should close because they didn't do that, that if a business can't pay that wage, they shouldn't exist.
Well, I mean, that's the thing to remember. If you're sitting here and, dancing on the grave of the Great Lakes location in Midtown, they have multiple streams of income. They do very well. And actually that location, if anything, was not a money winner for them. So they just walked away. They can dust their hands off. You didn't bankrupt Great Lakes. They're going to continue to do extremely well through their roasting. I'm not saying that as like a pro Great Lakes. I'm just saying it is what it is. Like you said, they're bigger than just one shop. So they're going to be fine. You didn't maim them or anything. They just kind of dusted their hands off and said, all right, screw it. We'll go, we'll just continue with the other stuff. So the question then becomes, Jared, as someone who lived right in that area for a while, and there's plenty of residents there, and it's gaining residents in that area, you just have this vacant corner, and what can go there, Jared? Because, if you try and do the exact same concept or a similar concept, a coffee shop or a brewery, whatever, bar, whatever, these same issues are going to be hanging around the neck of that. And so you want something to go there. Of course, everybody wants that to be a viable place. What can go there, though, with this kind of specter looming over it?
Some of these things we're not going to know from time, but I do think that space, whatever goes in there, is going to have that focus on them, and they better understand that unless they pay $15 an hour, they're going to get protested.
And I was just going to say, we'll see. We could continue to go on this, Jared, but that's the other question you could say is, okay, if something opens up there and you're paying $7 for a cup of coffee, but the employers are making $18 an hour, are you okay with that? Is that? I mean, I'm just putting that out there. Are you okay with that?
Well, you were mentioning about the increasing price of coffee. I have heard from a number of listeners that Starbucks, and I kind of use them as my barometer because they're the biggest, has been consistently increasing their prices recently, across the board. So I feel like that's kind of where they're going. And I'd also mention that Starbucks is the focus of a lot of the unionization efforts. Like Great Lakes was the, locally independently owned one that they went after. Starbucks is, the more of the national chain. And I think they're prepping for that.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note, I don't know how many, I'm sure we have coffee drinkers in our audience. I'm a black coffee drinker. So I have a very clean barometer for the cost of coffee. I don't get fancy stuff. I just get black coffee wherever I go. Starbucks actually these days in Detroit, let's say in Detroit, it is on the cheaper end for actually like a black coffee. I think it's like $3 and change.
100%.
Which is fine. But and that's the point. I don't mind going to Desert Oasis. It's more, or Coffee Down Under, or any of these other kind of roasteries. I happily pay more, and I get it. But Starbucks isn't this like kind of overpriced coffee giant that some people think. It's actually pretty affordable now. But again, you're paying for the experience. You're paying for the small business aspect of it. So I'd support these places, even though the coffee, like you said, has gotten quite expensive.
We've got new renderings for the District Detroit. How stoked are you? 0 to 10.
I'm over here sipping my ranch water, and I'm sitting at about a 5.
I'm sitting about a 2.
Oh my God. Okay, Jared. So 2. So let's be clear then. 5 for me means completely ambivalent. You at a 2 means you're like straight up skeptical.
Right. And I'll put a link to Urbanized Detroit, which has a bunch of the different like pretty renderings and maps. And the renderings are fine. Like I actually like some of the like walkable things, but I also like some of the things for what we saw years ago that didn't happen. Because
Right.
my problem is that although you've got Stephen Ross and U of M involved with this new thing for the District Detroit and their, innovation center and all that stuff, I still feel like Charlie Brown, Lucy, and the football. And I can't shake that anymore because you just get burned. You see, like, and I toured the Eddystone. It's beautiful, but all the other ones aren't done yet. And then I look at the map, and this is why I'm a 2, Devin. I look at this map of where the buildings are and what they're building, and I see a lot of blue. And blue on this map means commercial office space.
Mm.
And I don't know if these people realize that the world has changed. And I think we need more residences. And I would rather see more residences than what I'm seeing here.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, Jared. I mean, we've talked enough about this. I think people get that from our conversations at this point, is that you and I are both very skeptical of any new office development and office space because we feel like there's probably enough of that already. And so, if you're telling me you're building more Class A office, I don't know, unless you really have people lined up. I mean, they did a good job filling the other space. They got BCG, they got Warner Norcross, they got some really nice companies to fill that building next to the Michaelich School of Business. But I don't know how much more you can get there.
Well, I am excited that part of the parking lot that's across from Comerica Park, or a couple of them in this plan, would have buildings. I think they should be residential with retail or some other mix. Because
or
hotel, because those are the kinds of things that I think are going to be in more demand. I also just, I have so much trouble after the years of no progress. I have so much trouble believing that anything but the U of M portion is going to get built.
Oh yeah, and that's where my ambivalence comes from. This all looks great, and I hope it happens, and maybe it will happen. But the track record, history tells us that this is going to be incredibly delayed, if not just something that doesn't even come together. And especially, you mentioned the macroeconomic factors of heading into potentially a recession, that can shelve a lot of large developments unless you're somebody like a Dan Gilbert who, to his credit, basically said F that and has pushed through any kind of economic downturn that's happened in the last decade or so and said, I don't care, I'll go into my own pocket to build these buildings if I have to, or finish these developments. And the Illiches just don't have that same drive,
Before I let you go, let's talk about something that seems to be on the minds of everybody. We've been talking about the economic conditions, but gas prices, they've been going up. There is now a proposal that's made a lot of progress in the state legislature to get rid of the sales tax and the state gas tax on gasoline in Michigan, which would knock off less than $0.50 on the price. It's a stopgap measure that would go for a number of months, but gas prices are going up, and it seems to be a concern of a lot of people. And there was a poll that Local 4 did of their viewers, and they said that 45%, more than 45% of their viewers were canceling their Memorial Day weekend trip altogether because of gas prices. And then an additional 15% said they might cancel their plans, with 39% saying that they're going to continue to do the trip despite the higher prices. And I get it. Like, I get that this gas tax thing might be popular. It passed with huge bipartisan support. I think that it shoots us in the future when it comes to needed repairs and such. I don't think it actually solves any of the problems, but it's going to make a lot of politicians look good and get some listeners yelling at me that I'm heartless. That's my opinion on that. What do you think about that and the trips?
Jared, you're trying to get my blood boiling on a Friday. I'll die on this hill because this is ridiculous to me. This is a completely we're totally missing the forest for the trees here. It's like, my God, again, let me give you a quick math lesson here. Okay. 15 gallons is the average fuel tank, let's say. Okay. if you're paying 40 cents more a gallon, how much is that really? 40 cents more a gallon.
$5.
Might be, $5 per fill up. I mean, we're really splitting hairs here. We're talking about a cup of coffee, and to completely say that your life's in disarray now. You can't take your trips with your kids. You just can't make ends meet anymore. I'm sympathetic to those situations of themselves, but I got news for you. It's not because of the gas prices. I'm sorry, it's not. There's other factors. There is inflation. There's cost of materials. There's everything costs more, and I get that. But we've just so focused in on gas because it's something, and you said this, Jared, you said this. It's something that we constantly are reminded of because we drive past gas stations and see those blinking lights that say the prices of gas. And our brains can very easily understand that's more, that's less, it's going up, it's going down. We don't know how much a cup of coffee costs and if it's gone up. We don't know how much lumber costs and if it's gone up. We just feel that later on. So the fact that we're just so focused on gas is like, my God, I want to shake people and just wake them up and say, this isn't that big of a deal. There are more important things happening than $5 extra on your friggin' fill up. I don't know. Like I said, it gets me hot and bothered because it's just I can't. It's a situation that we've made way bigger than it really is.
So I'll give you feedback from two camps of listeners I've heard from as we've kind of been touching on this topic over the last few weeks. One, there are a number of listeners who think this is wonderful, who are people who are generally urbanists and such and go, our gas prices should be more like Europe, which are basically double what we're at right now, to encourage people to use a car only when you need it and to think about how we lay out our cities, how we do things. Because one of the challenges, especially here in Metro Detroit, and I'm working on a transit piece, is our lack of population density. We have that's a real problem here in being an affordable and accessible region, is that we got so many people who their job's in Livonia that you can't take a bus to, and they live in St. Clair Shores. That's the reality of our region. And so that is something that maybe higher gas prices will help people make better decisions with that group. I've got another group who live life a little bit differently than I do because I don't take very many car trips unless I need to. I'm somebody who just doesn't. But a lot of people who are taking 7, 8 car trips a day, they're picking up their kids from school. They're running to soccer practice. They're doing this, doing that. There isn't a lot of walking. In a lot of ways, there isn't a lot of options other than taking a car to everywhere you go because of how their community's laid out. And they're very frustrated and worried about this because they're adding an extra, they're adding hundreds of dollars because they're burning through so much gas on a regular basis. Through multiple cars, this is really impacting their home.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I'm somewhat sympathetic to those situations, those extreme situations, but at the same time, I don't want to be the here, but I will be for the sake of this argument. But that it's partially what you've chosen. Like you just mentioned, we have an amazing array of electric vehicles now, and the infrastructure. And we can go down this path, but the electric vehicle structure in Michigan is just increasing exponentially every year. Electric vehicles are, at this point, a very viable option for you. And then also, in somewhat, people choose where to live and where to work. And we've talked about this before about that choice. Where are you willing to commute to? If you want work in downtown and you live in Milford, that's something you think about that. You can't have your cake and eat it too, as you said. So, I'm sympathetic to those arguments only so far.
Well, I'm interested to hear what you guys think about anything that we've talked about. dailydetroit@gmail.com. All right, we are done for today. Heading into the long weekend, we've got a lot of things ahead of us, Devin. In fact, we are going to be seeing each other up on Mackinac Island in just a few days.
Yes, Jer. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. The Mackinac Policy Conference is here. The next time you and I speak, we'll likely be up on Mackinac Island with all sorts of action and activities, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of stories to share from the island and then once we return.
And I've gotten some great feedback so far in the email box about things you want me to go, that people want me to go after, talk to people about, things like that. So keep them coming. I'm all about those suggestions. And then right after that, we have Ferndale Pride on the 4th, which is going to be very exciting. We have our flower arch together. We're even sneaking, there won't be booze at it, but we're sneaking a bar in to have some fun so that we can meet people. Of course, if you're already a listener, come by, say hi. If you're not, if you're somebody who's a listener and has a friend, bring them by. Sign them up for the email newsletter or the podcast. It'll be great. And then On the 10th is our 1000th episode celebration happy hour at the congregation. We have events on Eventbrite and Facebook. RSVP if you can, so we kind of get an idea of how many people are coming. We'll be out there from 5 to 8. I'm excited, and I just can't wait to meet folks. And 1,000 episodes.
I've been part of a small fraction of them, but I'm happy to have played my part. It's been amazing being a part of this team, and we will celebrate rightly for 1,000.
That's it for this week. Until next time, I'm Jer Stays.
I'm Devin O'Reilly.
Remember that you are somebody, take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.